Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern here on BeyondRingside.com. Join us for the Midnight Black Mass. Myself, the Reverend Dan Wilson, brings you the dark gospel of professional wrestling, uncensored, unedited, uncut, and not for the faint of heart. You can find out more about us at youtube.com/pottyhumor or subscribe at Potty Humor on iTunes and Stitcher today.
Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies. How's it going? It is I, the devil you know, the maniacal minister of the occult, the Reverend, the Dragon, Dan Wilson, here for another edition of the Midnight Black Mass, and I am elated that you have joined us on this cool, crisp autumn eve for Season 6, Episode 50 of the program. Glad to be back. Had a adventurous off weekend from professional wrestling. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to continue our discussion from last week about wrestling fans and the status of the sport. But right now, let me introduce my guest, my partner in crime, the Eeyore to my Winnie the Pooh, Andrew Alexander. How are you, my friend?
Eeyore. You know, sadly, that's not the first time I've been called an Eeyore.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I don't get it, but hey.
You have such a cheerful, sunny, positive disposition and outlook on life. I just don't understand why anyone would confuse you with a depressed, stuffed donkey who comes to life because of black magic.
Okay, well, when you put it that way, I guess I am a Eeyore.
So what's been going on?
Oh, nothing, man. Just watching some of this Luke Cage on the Netflix.
Oh, boy. That's a good one. I'm only about 30 episodes in, but I've seen a lot of people complaining about, it's just not on the level. It was like, I just loved it. I thought it was as good as anything they've done so far. I mean, like I said, I'm early in it, but fuck, Cottonmouth again. Yet another television Marvel villain that outshines those of his film counterparts.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I won't say I love it, just not as much as, I really, really love the 2 seasons of Daredevil. But, of course, I was a huge Daredevil fan going in, and Kingpin, and more familiar with them, and obviously adding the Punisher to Season 2 was amazing. I do really enjoy it. I don't dislike it. It's just not it's not been on the level, in my opinion, of that. But it is very good, and I'm 3 episodes. I have 3 episodes left. So after this, I might be able to knock out all 3 tonight. Maybe not, but it's very good. I love that it is tying in well to the other Netflix shows, building up for the next season of Iron Fist, and then that big Defenders series that I've just got a feeling is going to be amazing. And you're right. There's Cottonmouth, good villain on here. A couple other good villains, actually. Misty Knight, I think, has been a great character, and Claire, the night nurse, she's got a bit of a integral part in this season later on, which really isn't a spoiler, but definitely enjoying it. Loving these Netflix series that Marvel's doing. Wish they could pump out more. But I guess if they did that, it would lose maybe a little bit of its shine. So definitely like having those around. Getting through a bit of a rough time for Marvel, where there's no movies until November, which Civil War was amazing. I've watched it 2 or 3 times since the Blu-ray was released, but long time to get to Doctor Strange, so it's helping fill that void. But other than that, all the other stories coming back recently, Gotham, and we're about to, I think this week, all the DC shows on the CW come back, so time to get back in that groove of sitting around and watching TV, and instead of just sitting around and jerking it all the time.
There's a lot of talk about masturbation alternatives going on tonight. I don't know what that's about. I ask why you need an alternative, but I guess the human body is only capable of so many refractory periods.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because, I mean, good Lord, a 15-year-old Andrew Alexander, whoo, man. if I could have got paid my whole life for jerking off, I would be retired by now. I would be so rich.
I could buy TNA. I can tell you that much.
Well, more to come on that here in just a little bit. But you heard him cackle there in the background, so I do have to introduce him. Ladies and gentlemen, our producer, the great Fast Eddie Lane, the Magic City Motor Mouth, is on the line with us as well. Just wanted to check in and say hello, Eddie.
Thank you both for putting up with me. I have not really had a chance to say this on or off air, but I'm Rev Dan Andrew. I just want to say thank y'all for putting up with me during the Midnight Black Mass. I greatly appreciate it. And now that I've said that, I'm still trying to figure out why one forearm is bigger than the other.
That's a good question.
Well, so using that as a segue, had a pretty crazy weekend. It was a lot of fun. Some really hilarious things. I can't. A gentleman never tells. Luckily, I'm no gentleman. So, but there's still some things that I want to divulge to Andrew off air. But so it was the bachelor party for my lifelong best friends, the great Muji, who, if you followed our exploits on the Potty Humor Network, the great Muji, of course, is the founder of that and the co-host of Get Your Polls, and also former co-host of Midnight Black Mass years ago. So, if you're familiar with the Rev universe, then you probably know about Muji. So,
the fucking Rev universe.
It has been established over about 5 years of this fucking show, so I figure some people might know who I'm talking about if you've been listening for a while. Anyway, Muji's a pretty, chill dude, he doesn't really get too rowdy, and so he still didn't get too rowdy, but we had a good time. Went out and ate a Brazilian steakhouse, buffet-style lunch, and just pigged out mercilessly. And then went back and watched the football game, which I'm not a big football fan, but, when in Rome, everybody else was doing that. So enjoyed that, had some adult beverages, and then headed on down to Atlanta to the Gentlemen's Club, and enjoyed a wild night of debauchery there. One of the guys that was with us stopped a potential gang raping because some chick in the bar got roofied, and Muji's little brother, actually, KT, being a true fucking hero, made sure that chick got home in an Uber, and did not go home with the 5 dudes who very much looked like they were the ones that roofied her, that she didn't know who they fucking were, but was totally just going with it. So, potential crisis averted, even in the midst of...
Which ruined my night, by the way, but keep going.
You fucking asshole. Always the heel, Andrew Alexander. So that happened. One of the guys that was with us dropped fucking half a G in there. And, yeah, the rest of us did not. But, like, okay. Like, these guys act like they've never been to a strip club before. You gotta make them earn it. You can't just go out there and be throwing all your money at them. Like, I guess the whole making it rain culture has permeated that, and now, so, you know, from my etiquette, which a lot of that comes from Mr. Alexander, is you hold that dollar out there, you show them you got it, and then you don't give it to them until they do something cool.
That's right. Fucking right.
And then, all right, hey, you did something cool. You earned the tip. There you go.
Yeah,
I'm a classy dude.
Just walking up there naked, like, that's not, you know, that's standard. You got to make that ass clap like hands or something. I mean, shit. Give me a show. If you go to Why We Wrestle in Cornelia, Georgia, and pay to get in, and guys just walk to the ring and then leave, that's not a performance. That's not a match. You got to get in the ring. You got to do some shit.
That's a fact. And so, other great moments, including the great Muji almost getting his glasses broke by a giant ass that slapped in his face. And he was like, "Oh man, I think she almost broke my glasses." It almost fucking knocked him over. It was quite a powerful ass.
Oh man, I bet he don't know nothing about that. He don't know how to handle that.
No, and it was your favorite flavor of sugar.
Oh god damn, yeah. he definitely don't know about that.
No. It was uncharted territory for the Great Mood.
Oh.
And then his little brother, who did stop the gang rape, so he was savvy enough to do that. He's a savvy dude, but, you know, he's a Saudi Daisy born and bred guy. He'd never really been to an Atlanta strip club, so just watching his face, and the reactions were pretty priceless.
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a good time.
It was, and then we got home at 6 a.m, and that was not a good time. So it's like, oh, fuck. But luckily, my dear family was kind enough to me to let me sleep in a little bit on Sunday, so I recovered a little bit. But yeah, it was nice to have an off weekend from the wrestling, but I'm back at it this next Saturday at Why We Wrestle, October the 8th at the Church of Southern Wrestling in Cornelia, Georgia. Big main event, three-way tag team match. The winner goes on to Friday night on October 22nd. It'll be the Viking War Party taking on the Hooligans, taking on the Lynch Mob. Three of the top teams in the sport today doing battle, but only one can go on to Friday night to take on the tag team champions, the Monarchy, for the tag team titles. So that's going to be cool. But I'm probably going to have a pretty reduced schedule for the winter. I've had a very busy 2016. I've been out there beating up and down the roads, kind of limiting the bookings due to the holidays and family things. I'll be out there taking some. Then, of course, come January, we'll be cranking her back up, and I'll be back out there, here, there, and everywhere I can get. What will you be doing, Andrew?
Oh, fucking thumbing my ass. But that seems, things shows do a little bit better this time of year than the summer, the fall, and the winter. I don't know if as many shows are running, but it definitely seems to be better for fans during, when it's not in the summer. Because, I mean, even if you go to a show that, even if it has nice air conditioning, it still gets hot as fuck in those buildings.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, with the weather outside being pretty nice and stuff, you don't always want to jump to do something indoors like that. But, hey, I'm all for limited schedule. You should take as much time as you need. I support it.
Well, I mean, it could be that the weather was bad or that there was a race in town or a festival or a football game. It's funny that you bring that up because you get so many excuses from promoters and the locals. Bill would always refer to Miss Sandy, the concession lady at Wildside. Every time we didn't draw, she'd always have a reason. Well, there's blah, blah, blah in town. And Bill said what I'll say. And, ultimately, if you're fucking hot and you're putting on a show that can't miss, then they're going to be there and they're going to brave whatever temperatures they got to brave to see it. And if you're not, well, you can come up with any fucking excuse in the world as to why you didn't draw, but it's most likely because you didn't fucking promote it right.
Yeah, definitely there's things that hurt it, and it definitely gets harder. That's what she said during certain times of the year. But ultimately, I think you're right. It boils down to if you have something people want to see, they'll make it a point to get there. But it's very tough to do when you're running weekly or bi-weekly in the same location. But yeah, when it all boils down, if you have something good people want to see, they're going to come see it.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, you can put on great wrestling, but they got to know it's there. If they don't know it's fucking there, then they're never going to see it in the first place to get hooked. So, it's somewhat of a chicken-egg scenario, but still, you promoters, you got to get out there and fucking promote. That's how you draw people. This ain't Field of Dreams. You can't build it, and they ain't going to come, okay? Yeah. Unless you're building a fucking X-rated theater with fucking penny booths, then they'll come a few times, but they won't for a professional wrestling product or any entertainment-based function. If you don't promote it, they're not going to come. Simple as that.
Yep, it seems pretty basic, but it's not always the easiest thing for promoters to pull off. But, I know it's a lot of work, but it's something you got to put in.
Hey, I will, I'll admit it. I've done the job by my fucking self. As a promoter, it sucks. It's the shittiest job in wrestling by a fucking stretch. By a long 50-mile stretch. It's the worst job. But if you take on that responsibility, it all falls on you. The good thing is if you're successful, that all falls on you too. But if you fail, it all falls on you. You can't blame the boys. You can't blame the race in town or the football game or the bad weather. You can only blame yourself.
Well, I don't know. I don't think every promoter lives by that rule, but to each their own.
Well, I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying that's the fact of the situation. Whether they see it is totally up to them.
Yep.
So, in the spirit of the Halloween season, as we've spoken about, let's talk about TNA wrestling, the zombie that won't die.
Yeah, that's a good description.
And good, because I'm not hoping they go out of business or anything. I'm not one of those assholes. I got a lot of friends that work there. I want them to keep their jobs, and I want them to maybe one day actually turn into a flourishing wrestling company. They haven't after 15 years, but maybe one day they will. And then guys will make even more money. It'll be even better. So, you definitely want TNA to stick around. But there's been no promotion in the history of professional wrestling that has skirted death like them. Your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. There's just been rumors for months and months and months. Hell, the rumors have probably been in most of their existence that they were going to be sold or they were going under or going out of business or how can they keep going? And it looked like they were having a lot of trouble financing the pay-per-view that happened last night, but apparently that went off and, sounded like a decent show. I didn't watch it and probably never will. But, who knows? You never know who's out there wanting to invest. I personally don't really understand why anyone would want to put up money for not really just that, but kind of any wrestling promotion, to be honest with you, but outside of the WWE, I'm talking, meaning within this country, but lots of rumors that maybe the WWE themselves may be interested in purchasing them, I guess, just to get the tape library.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of top guys right now that had a lot of history in TNA. AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, probably a handful of other guys that they could use that footage, put on their network or release DVDs, things such as that. So if they got it at a good price, I think it would be a good investment just for the library alone. As far as the current content, current stars, I'm really not sure how much they would need or want or keep around from that. But definitely interesting to see what happens there, because it's, you just hear rumors. Obviously, we don't know what's going on, but it really seems like they're on the ropes right now.
Well, according to the financials that have been released, their accumulated debt over their existence that they owe creditors is more, I think, by double, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that, than what the company is actually worth. So that makes it a very hard sell to investors, because they're taking on all of that debt in addition to whatever value the company has. So that's a tough spot for them, but they've survived again, at least for Bound for Glory. The last couple of years, been a lot of misses, but there's been some things that actually hit in TNA, and I think they've got some good things going on. I've enjoyed the Hardy Boys shtick. You think on the outside, you just see it, and you think, how ridiculous is this? But then you think about it a little more, and you think, well, hell, I mean, you can't go any further in wrestling than we've gone with silliness, and I normally hate that shit, but the Hardys do such a great job of embracing the camp of it all, and it's just, it's my favorite shit on the show for sure, and on a lot of wrestling shows, actually. Matt Hardy is this fucking gold in that role, and Bobby Lashley has been great as a dominant champion, and there's been some guys that have really stood out there, so I really hope, it looks like, all of the giant mess of the Hogan Russo days are behind them, and hopefully they can put it forward together with a solid roster, and it looks like they're building from the ground up again, but they've done it plenty of times before, so who knows?
Yeah, they have some good talent, and they have some guys I could see doing well in the WWE or NXT or both. Then they have some guys that are good, but I just don't know if they would work on that next level. But there's one guy you mentioned, Bobby Lashley. There's some rumors that he might be leaving. He actually lost. Apparently he lost the TNA World Title tonight.
Tonight?
I guess at a taping to Eddie Edwards, which seems kind of like definitely an upset, but kind of seems out of nowhere from what I've read as the results. Because I read the results of the shows, but I haven't watched it probably a solid 2 years at least. So it definitely seems out of nowhere that they would do that, but hey, congratulations to him. So curious to see what will happen there with Lashley, because I think that's the guy that's really, the matches I did see with him, once he kind of got a main event push in TNA, he seemed to really come a long way in a short amount of time, because he definitely, he didn't have a 300 matches a year schedule going, so his improvement seemed pretty quick overall.
No, and he's like a modern star. He's got like the shoot fight background. His promo's not great, but it's totally fine for what he does. He kind of just reminds me of like your prototypical like NFL athlete, NBA athlete. He dresses nice. He comes out and is just, it's all about the spot and the belt, and just like treated it very seriously. And yeah, I appreciated that. I actually enjoyed seeing what I saw of him as champ.
Yeah, I really didn't see a lot, like I said, in a long time. But I remember watching a match he had with Jeff Hardy. It's been a while, but in recent memory, he had that match, and I watched it and I was like, wow. And obviously, Jeff Hardy is a
I think he's probably still the biggest star they've got, and somebody that could show up on, a Raw next Monday and be the most over guy in the company. But had a match with him, and I was really blown away by. I was kind of surprised at how good it was. Like, wow. So definitely, and they got some young talent, and they got some talent that I really honestly don't know much about, because I haven't tuned in the show in a long time. So be curious to see what happens if that's what happened with him in the WWE Boston. But it may not be that. It may be a complete outside source of income there, a source of cash. I know Billy Corgan is involved and interested in purchasing. I'm just, if I had millions of dollars, it's not the purchase I would make with that money, but that's just me.
Yeah, the odds aren't too good. But, hey, if they can find it, more power to them. So, keeping it in the wrestling wheelhouse of topics, I'll segue over to the guy that we lost today, who was, most of you probably won't know who I'm talking about out there in wrestling radio land, but people up here in the Chattanooga and North Georgia area definitely will. The guy who's responsible for giving most of the good talent that came through our area their first real break. Like, I worked for a couple of really terrible shows before I got in there, but, that was the first place I ever met guys that I learned anything from. And that's the great Doug Watkins, the former TWA promoter, who out of Dalton, Georgia, who just passed away today. So just wanted to give a shout out to his family, Mikey and Randy and Terry, his brothers, and his wife Peggy. Just was really sweet people. Really did a lot to keep wrestling going in that area for many years, and he will definitely be missed.
Dude, I had no clue. What the hell? I had no clue that happened.
Yeah, he was sick, and Mikey had posted some things about him. They were calling him hospice, and it was last night that he posted they were calling him hospice, and this morning he passed away.
Man, that sucks. That's terrible. Like you just mentioned, and I'll always be grateful and in debt to him. And I'm sure there's at least 100 other people that can say this, but I was a 16-year-old kid who had some limited training, and I went to Doug's promotion here in Dalton, Georgia, TWA, and he gave me a shot. I had my first match in his building, and, there were other people that I tried, and they would not give me a chance, and he did. So for that alone, for nothing else, because that was definitely at the time, and even now, one of the biggest days of my life that I got to have my first wrestling match, because I wanted it so bad as a kid, as a teenager, and to get to do that was just the biggest thing for me. And I know you and a lot of other people could say the same, and he made that possible. So that's really sad to hear. He promoted wrestling for, it had to be 25 years plus.
Yeah, a lot of guys came through there. Guys that, would credit him for helping them break into the business would be including, but not limited to, David Young, Bobby Hayes, Tank, Andrew Alexander, myself, Ace Rockwell, Sean Tempers, Jesco Blue / Rufus Black. I'm trying to think, and I'm sure there's more, but just off the top of my head, that's a pretty hell of a strong list of guys.
Yeah, definitely. And,
Adam Jacobs was another guy that came through there.
Yeah, I know Jimmy Rave didn't get his start, but he definitely worked soon after getting into business, worked a lot for Doug. There's a countless number of guys, and just the guys you mentioned, that's some of the, that's the best talent that's come from this area in 20, 25 years easily. Not just because I was on the list, but everyone else you said, Adam Jacobs, Tank, Bobby Hayes, Sean Tempers, Ace Rockwell, those, like, that's the absolute best talent to come from the area, and they all pretty much got their start with Doug.
Yeah, so it's a very sad day in the North Georgia, Chattanooga area wrestling scene, because, you know, from guys that went on to do a lot to guys that spent the majority of their career at TWA, there's always a kinship and a family type atmosphere with the Watkins. They were open to everybody. They were just welcoming, sweet people. You probably didn't get paid more than a hot dog there or a Coke, but it didn't matter. Like, that's where you break in and pay your dues. We paid a lot of them there, and got nothing but love and respect for the Watkins family. And Doug, we'll see you on the other side, brother.
Yes, sir.
So, not to bring everybody down, but it was definitely something that needed to be addressed. So just wanted to pay a little tribute to Doug here on the program. I'm sure he's having a ball wherever he's at, raising hell and messing with folks and trying to run some wrestling. So let's go back to a topic that we were talking about last week, and we kind of trailed off. It came up right towards the end of the episode, and I felt there was just a whole lot more discussion left in the bag there. You had brought up a point that you thought that the fans were actually to blame for ruining the environment of professional wrestling. When you say ruining wrestling, I mean, that's a broad statement. So, I think I can clarify a little bit there in that it ruins the reality that you're trying to set when the fans try to put the attention on themselves. Would that be what you were trying to convey?
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things that wrestling fans are kind of complain about nowadays that, either A, they're just being kind of unrealistic, and they don't even begin to understand a lot of things that they think they do. I think just we're all too smart for our own good. We're all exposed to every inner working of the business. We all think we know more than we do, especially fans that aren't in the business or that haven't ever really done anything. I mean, not even just a little show here and there. I mean, literally have done nothing. But they think they're very, very in tune to what should happen and how things work and things like that. And then going to the shows, and you got guys out there doing the best with what they've been given, and they're busting their ass, and they're working so hard, risking their lives, basically. And you're just kind of shitting on them by chanting ridiculous shit that just has nothing to do with what's going on. I just really think that it's something that's kind of, and how it's also hurting the product is, okay, you're a casual fan and you like the hard-hitting action, the fast-paced stuff, and the false finishes, and the drama that happens in the last, say, 5 minutes of a good, solid wrestling match. And you're going, and that's all you're reacting to, and that's all you care to see, and that's all you care for. So you sit there on your hands during the rest of the match or the rest of the show. So a writer or a promoter or someone in charge sees that and hears that, and it just puts more pressure on the wrestlers to say, okay, this is the only thing the fans are going to react to, so we got to go out and do more of that and more of that. Well, then that may make some of the casual fans happy, but what it does is it takes years off of guys' careers because they're putting their bodies through way too much on, just on random, okay, here's a random match, no build, no story, it's just a match, boom, they're killing themselves. It's just too much. And then bands that maybe appreciate a longer build and appreciate a longer story and want to be pulled in a little bit more and want to see things happen that matter, then they don't like it because they're like, well, these guys are doing, and that's like me. I see guys doing all this shit. It makes no sense. It's just action for the sake of action. I don't like that. I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to see that shit. And so it just turns off. It's just an endless circle
not being able to satisfy anybody.
I could see I see the point. I mean, it does turn things into a bit of a circle jerk because it is. It's like, oh, well, the fans are the boss. They dictate what gets over, what doesn't, but there's a lot of them. And so are the loudest ones hijacking their portion of the fandom and disrespecting the other fans as a result? Maybe. It's hard to put the blame on the paying customers because they do keep the product alive. And, you are ultimately responsible for satisfying, but I definitely understand what you're talking about because of the age of social media and instant gratification. Fans think that can apply in wrestling as well, and so it kind of fucks the long-term story and the long-term payoff when they're wanting the payoff instantly every single time. And it takes the meaning out of the long-term payoff as well. So, and I think you just got to ignore some of it, but obviously, like you say, when it's in the arena, it's hard to ignore. An example I'll use, and I don't want to bust these guys' balls because they're great dudes and they support a lot of indie wrestling. These are the type of people that keep indie wrestling alive. But there was some mild bitching on the Why We Wrestle Twitter page over the girl fight show. And it was not anything like they didn't mean anything by it, but some of the fans were just bantering about, oh, we're going to go to this. And, one guy was like, well, the Florida card's way better. And his other buddy was like, well, come on, you get this and this and this and this. Like, why not? It's like right here where we live. He's like, yeah, but, I think we got screwed on the lineup. Okay, well, the Florida lineup is probably better because they have a lot of great talent that lives down there. If you see these shows, a lot of it is supplemented with the gals that are local. But, the talent lineup wasn't even that different besides 2 or 3 chicks. And, those were replaced with equally impressive chicks as far as their resume goes. May not be your personal taste as a fan, but as a great resume. So it's like you're totally entitled to make that comment. You're the paying customer. You have the right to decide whether or not you're going to see something. But from an outside observer who maybe doesn't understand that or doesn't understand that you're just bantering back and forth with your buddy, you kind of come off like, damn, we tried so hard to put this great card together and they're shitting on it before they even seen it.
Yeah, I mean, and independent wrestling is kind of a different beast. There's definitely some things that don't apply, but then there are things that do. But yeah, complaining about a card before you see it, I mean, you could go to that show and it could just blow you away, and you would be like, wow, everything I said was fucking wrong. But like you said, people see that and they're like, well, these guys seem to know what they're talking about, so I won't go to that. That doesn't help anybody. I mean, the fans do have every right to voice opinions and concerns, and they don't have to like everything on the show and things. But we're at a point where people want to bitch. Like, no one wants to praise anything. They just want to bitch about everything. And it's just, I think it's up to the WWE. I think it's up to their writers and their wrestlers and Vince McMahon to I think sometimes you got to remember that you're booking the show, you're telling the fans, you're giving the fans the show to see. They're not booking the show. I think sometimes maybe, and I get there's a lot of pressure. Like, I think guys kind of know that, like, okay, we got to go out there and kill ourselves to get this crowd going, or maybe a crowd's dead, and they're like, okay, let's pick it up to try to get them into it. And sometimes I say, fuck that. I say, no, man, if they're just going to sit on their hands, if they didn't come here to have a good time and you're killing yourself, it's just not worth it. And I know maybe we're at to a point where they're not calling it up in the ring anyways, and everything's memorized before they go out there, so you really can't make any alterations if a crowd's into something or not into something or biting on certain things. But I just don't know. I think guys are working way too hard. And you may be listening thinking, okay, how can guys work too hard? I mean, when you see guys doing shit on
a Monday Night Raw in a match that doesn't even make the Hulu edited cut the next day, and they're bumping on the floor every week. It's like, that's supposed to matter. That's supposed to be a big deal. When Ricky Steamboat DDT Jake Roberts on the floor, it was a huge, huge fucking deal. Now there are bumps on the floor literally every show, every week. There's like, oh, he just gave his finish to this guy on the floor. They don't even have any heat. Like, that just happened. It's just guys are killing themselves. They're working so hard, and they're working so hard that on a night or an occasion where they're not going to have that specific type of match where they are killing themselves, people shit on it. They're like, well, the last time they worked, they did all this, and it was 5 stars, and then tonight they just phoned it in. Maybe they didn't phone it in. Maybe that's the story that needs to be told, and they wanted to protect their bodies or save something for the pay-per-view or save something for the big blow-off and not bust their whole load for you on this random-ass match that is the middle of the story. But then everybody shits on it. Nobody wants to wait to see what the end result is.
Yeah, it's a delicate balancing act in many ways, because you do have to give the fans what they want. I mean, you see the Roman Reigns situation where it's just like, it's been a stubbornness of like, no, this is the guy we're pushing, and you're going to fucking like it. Whether or not you fucking like it, you're going to fucking get with it. And they're just not getting with it. So, at some point you can't force something that's not going to happen. But in the same respect, it's like, it's a delicate balancing act of giving them what they want, but giving it to them when you are ready to give it to them, when it needs to happen, not necessarily when they want it to happen. And so, with the louder vocal fan, you want to take some of that feedback under consideration, especially from the more intelligent ones, but you also, like, they don't know where you're going. So you've got to trust your own instincts as well. And that is the balancing act. You mentioned some interesting things in that discussion just a moment ago about moves, bumps on the floor, and like just those important moments meaning less. And that is one disadvantage of the modern style being so fast-paced. I'm not an opponent of it. I enjoy it when it's done well. I've certainly come around in the last few years to accepting it is what it is. I'm not going to change it, so I might as well get on board with it and try to appreciate it. And those guys do some amazing stuff and have some really exciting matches, but I still feel like they could get more out of some of the things they're doing. Like, how many topes do you see on a card nowadays? Like, that's a death-defying move. I mean, there was a guy in Mexico that got killed doing a tope, and a few years ago, it was a horrifying incident. Like, his dad was the referee, and he was wrestling his brother, and he went out to do a tope, and his bottom feet got hooked in the middle rope. He went splat head first, dead on arrival. So that's a death-defying, dangerous move, and you're out there doing it to crickets. A tope used to get the biggest pop on the show in the mid-2000s. Now it's like, oh, there's a fucking tope, cool. So, just try to pick your spots. And to the fans, again, you have your right. You pay your money. You can say whatever you want. I would just implore you to use that power for good and not necessarily for instant gratification all the time. Try to see the big picture. There's cases where it's not happening, like I mentioned earlier, but, overall, there's usually a greater story at play than the one that's right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, something I compared it to, I would always think this, when I didn't get to watch the last season of The Walking Dead as it happened. I watched it when it was done, but usually all the other seasons I've watched as they happen. And I always find it funny when you would hear people talking about, well, last night's episode sucked. And I think, well, why did it suck? Oh, it sucked because a major character wasn't killed and you weren't surprised out of nowhere, and like no one killed each other and no one died and no one came really, really close to dying. It was just part of the story to get to the next chapter. And that happens every time. Every time there's an episode like that of The Walking Dead, people say, that episode sucked. It didn't suck. It just wasn't the season finale and fucking everyone didn't die and everyone didn't almost die and everyone didn't start fucking and all that shit that they do on the big episodes, and people are like, that's the best episode ever. It's all part of the story. It's all part of the end result. You got to look at it as the whole season. And that's how wrestling is. Like, sometimes there's matches that you see a match, you're like, oh, this match is going to be so good. And then, boom, it ends 3 minutes after it starts, and then disqualification. You get to the next week. So you're like, well, that fucking sucked. Well, maybe you should wait to the end result. Wait till the storyline's over, and then say, okay, that angle, start to finish, fucking sucked. Or that angle, start to finish, was pretty good. I like the story they told. And people nowadays, people just don't do that. The casual fan just doesn't look at it that way.
No, and it's a greater culture of like what has become so popular now. It just baffles me because it is permeated by the fans who are the smartest. And like I said, I'm not trying to insult these guys. I'm friends with a lot of these guys. I know them. They're good people and they love wrestling and they support it, but they're very vocal. But it's also like, okay, the current culture is that of, we know what's going on with wrestling. We're in on the joke. We're in on the rib. We know it's a work. So we appreciate it for what it is, except for sometimes you don't. Because it seems like now the culture is like, if it's not a 5-star match, then it's not even worth watching or talking about. And if a card is nothing but 5-star matches, then what fucking stands out? And they shit on any sort of angle or any semblance of wrestling hokum, that has been such a part of our business for so many years. And that's the part of it I don't like, because there's a place for all of it. There's a place for that great, like, let's have nothing but quality matches. There's a lot of promotions that build a niche around that, and that's fine. But there's also a place for the Tennessee bullshit. And you can't, like one thing that kills me is, like, Memphis is like a really popular buzzword right now amongst the indies. Like, oh, I want to be like Memphis. I want to do like Memphis. Well, if you're going out there trying to have a fucking 5-star match instead of trying to sell out the building by trying to sell an issue between two guys that fucking hate each other and want to beat the fuck out of each other, then you're not doing fucking Memphis, okay? Because that's what that shit was about. You shit on every semblance of that. The last Battle of Atlanta, when that came out, and then fans were just gushing all over, oh my God, I can't wait to see this. And then they talked about how great it was. And I mean, it was good. It was a nice bloodbath, and it was a fairly average blow off for a cage match from the time. But, Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Rich are fucking great, and and it was great, and people were gushing over. But if that exact same match happens today, they would have shit all over it. So, it confuses me. I just wish I understood better where the disconnect is between appreciating it for what it is, but not really.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I agree. I think there should be just a little bit of everything, especially on a weekly show, like an episode of Raw or an episode of SmackDown. Like, there should be a little bit of everything. Just give me one good, solid, awesome wrestling match. But you can't have a lot more. You can have good matches, but I mean, those 5-star 3-segment matches that everyone loves, if you had 3 or 4 of those a show, they wouldn't be special. You wouldn't remember them. You wouldn't remember. The Raw. Think about Raw matches that people remember. Everyone remembers the Shawn Michaels Shelton Benjamin match, mainly because of the finish. But everyone remembers that match fondly. Everyone remembers the Bret Hart 1-2-3 Kid match from 1994. If you go back and watch those episodes of Raw, I bet you anything that there's not another match like that on the show. That's the match. That's the good technical wrestling match. You can't have them on every show, but you can have one of those and one brawl or fight and one really funny comedy spot, even though typically they don't tend to be really funny. But when they are funny, they're memorable. When D-Generation X dresses up like the Nation of Domination, makes fun of them, people remember that. That spot was almost 20 years ago, and people remember that because it was good. But you got to have all of that stuff sprinkled in. And I think people should remember Okay, the show is geared towards two people, the television audience and the live audience. Sure, it's typically probably geared a little bit more towards the television audience, but you have to remember, if you're watching at home and you see John Cena do the 5 moves of doom, and you're like, he does this every match. If you see Roman Reigns do the Superman punch, you're like, he does this every match. Or if you're sick of the New Day saying, we're the WWE champions and gyrating, you're like, God, they do that every week. Now picture if you were in the live crowd. Picture if you took your kids to see it live, and those people didn't do those things, you would feel ripped off. If John Cena come out there and didn't hit someone with the AA, your kid would be like, well, that was cool, but John Cena didn't hit his move. Like, you have to have that. The live crowd has to see that. If I went to a show, I would want to see the fucking New Day gyrate and Big E make his funny ass faces and all that shit. I would want to see that. Like, if they didn't do it, I'd say, well, fuck the New Day. They didn't give me what I wanted to see. And that's what you got to think if you're watching at home. The live crowd has to see that stuff. And I think so many times people just watch at home and they're like, well, they did this last week. Yeah, they did it last week because the people that are paying to be there right now want to see that. I mean, would you agree with that statement pretty much?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And that's one of the many facets of producing a wrestling program that maybe people don't think about.
Yeah, that's the thing that you're all the really smart fans, I guarantee you they pretty much never thought about what I just said, even though it makes perfect sense to me, said out loud, like I hear it. I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I was at WrestleMania 24. I saw Ric Flair's quote-unquote last match with Shawn Michaels. The whole time I was like, man, I just can't wait to see him get thrown off the top rope. Even though I've seen it a million times, and he goes up to the top, and then he cuts Michaels off, and he hits like the crossbody, which is really cool. But literally, after that match ended, with all that emotion, fucking tears in my eyes, like everybody else in that stadium, Ric Flair's last match, all the emotion, the story that was told, it was fucking beautiful. But I left there saying, shit, man, Ric Flair didn't even get billed off the top rope. Like, I literally thought that because it didn't happen. And through all of that, I still was like, oh, shit. And then I was also like, man, it'd been nice to see a little color. But I knew that wasn't going to happen. And it probably wasn't the right place for it anyway. But it'd been nice to see Onach one last time get that crimson mask. So, I mean, that's just something that's just another thing that I think people don't think about when they're complaining about either the television show or when they're like, oh, I've seen this. Well, yeah. And Hogan posed after every match because if he didn't, the little kids in the crowd would have fucking cried.
Yeah, very hard to please all of your masters when they are comprised of the entire population who have different likes and dislikes and tastes and favorites and things that they hate. And you have an audience of thousands of those that you're all trying to placate. So try to keep that in mind. So I think that was a great discussion on the subject matter here. We're running out of time, so we're going to start wrapping things up. Going to get a few plugs in. You can follow me on Twitter at Dragons Rejects. I'm also on Instagram at Dragons Rejects and now on Snapchat at Dragons Rejects. So follow me, like me, do all that good stuff. Also on the Facebook, Rev Dan the Dragon Wilson. Upcoming appearances again while we wrestle October 8th in Cornelia, Georgia. Fright Night, Blast House on the left, October 22nd. And it's very likely I will be appearing as well at the Girl Fight Show on October 20th in the Church of Southern Wrestling in Cornelia. Got some dates and things to announce for the first of the year. We're going to say we'll be taking a bit of a lighter schedule through the holidays to spend time with the family and enjoy all of the various festivities that I like to go balls deep in around the holidays. I'm a big mark for Halloween and Christmas and all of that stuff, so I plan a lot of activities So I'll be out there, but a little bit reduced schedule. One place you might see me is at your wedding, because I am an officially licensed minister. Once again, through the Universal Life Church, I can perform wedding ceremonies in all but 3 U.S. states, and you definitely want to, or actually I can perform the ceremonies in any state, but if I perform your ceremony in a state that doesn't recognize it, you have to get licensed in an adjacent state. So, but I will do it as the Rev in full gimmick. If you want a black wedding, we'll sacrifice a goat. We'll have a little blood orgy. We'll play some black metal. It'll be a good time. You can email me at dragonsrejects@gmail.com to book me. And hell, if you're a Wild Side fan and want to have Dan the Dragon Wilson announce your wedding, I will do it. And I'll ask everybody in attendance how the hell they are.
Yeah.
Man, if you get one booking to marry someone, I want to go. I want to be invited to the wedding. I mean,
You'll be there, and my first one will be this Friday.
Other than that one, I understand that one. But any other one I want to see firsthand. That's right. I'm booked this Friday night at the wedding of the century, the Great Moogie. It's going to be a nice day for a Mooj wedding. I'm booked. I got my overpriced tuxedo ready to roll, son.
So, before I forget, also check out the Why We Wrestle social media at Why Do You Wrestle on Twitter, Facebook.com/This Is Why We Wrestle, to find out more about the stuff going on there. Fast Eddie Lane, any final comments before we wrap this one up?
Oh, you gave me some beautiful notes that I'm going to start tackling tomorrow night during Back to Basics, the Tuesday conversation, and I want to thank you for that. Folks, if you really paid attention to the things that were said tonight, you not only have words to think on, but you have words that will make you want to think more. Plain and simple. Be sure to check out BeyondRingside.com, ProWrestlingRadio.net. Be sure to catch the Beyond Ringside YouTube channel, YouTube.com/user/BeyondRingside. That is where a lot of the current episodes, from everything from the Midnight Black Mass, To Be Determined, BR Live, Back to Basics, Corner to Corner, they all go up there. Of course, I do run the links on social media. For me personally, FastEddieLane.com is my home. And if you're looking for someone to DJ and provide the music for your wedding and or reception, I'm an easy person to find at Fast Eddie Lane on Twitter, Facebook.com/Fast Eddie Lane, or Full Range Entertainment at Yahoo.com is the easy way to get me on bookings for wedding DJ and wedding receptions.
See, we got a full racket going on.
Let me just add my services, since we got a gimmick here. If you happen to be a guy that don't have a lot of good friends, like maybe like the plot from the movie I Love You, Man, because this shit is possible. I totally get it. Like, if you're out there and your woman wants to get 6 or 7 bitches lined up in a row and you only know 3 guys, if you need someone to step in, if you need a best man, or if you need a groomsman, Andrew Alexander's your guy. I look fucking good in a tux. I clean up nice. And I've been in no less than, coming this Friday, I've been in no less than 6, maybe 7 weddings myself. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I got your back. I can do funny stuff. I can give wedding toasts, speeches. I do it all. Midnight Black Mass weddings. Fast Eddie, the Rev, and Andrew Alexander. All your wedding needs.
Listen to that. We got a whole racket going on here. And Andrew, of course, also, in addition to his guest groomsman services, will provide amateur boudoir photography, as well as rent his services out as a male stripper for bachelorette parties.
That's fucking right.
So that's going to do it, folks. Great edition. We'll see you back here next week, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday night. That's the new time for the Midnight Black Mass each and every week. The only time you won't hear me this month will be on Halloween. I know that it saddens you, but I will be partaking in many Halloween festivities, going to Universal Studios for Halloween Horror Nights, got to get back, take my daughter out trick-or-treating, and a whole lot more. So that'll be the only time that I'm not incommunicado here for the Midnight Black Mass in October, but otherwise every Monday, and we'll be launching Volume 7 finally at the end of October, beginning of November. So great show for Fast Eddie Lane and Andrew Alexander. Thank you all for joining us on the Beyond Ringside Ringside Radio Network. I am the Rev Dan Wilson. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. Good night.